Good Yontif. A few weeks ago, when we were at Plum Street Temple celebrating my installation, I shared about a question that I get often when someone first learns that I'm a rabbi. They will invariably ask, "So, what sort of rabbi are you?" When out and about and the question of what I do for a living comes up, once I share that fact that this is what I do for a living, then people want to know, am I a Reform rabbi? Am I a conservative rabbi? And I typically like to reply playfully to break the ice. What sort of rabbi am I? Hopefully a good one. At the installation, I spoke about the sort of rabbi I hope to be to all of you, and I spoke about the sort of congregation I aspire us to be together. And there is another obvious and related question to ask to all of this. If someone wants to know what sort of rabbi I am, then I too want to know, what sort of Jew are you? Hopefully a good one, you may want to say. And I love that answer. Still, I want to explore this more deeply this morning. To the question, what sort of Jew are you? What words would describe or capture your Jewish identity? What are the adjectives, the predicates that capture who you are Jewishly? Now, one caveat before I go any further. I am aware that not everyone in this space considers themselves Jewish. One of the remarkable things of our congregation and of Reformed life today is that we are strengthened by our commitment to interfaith families. I'm aware of that. And so I asked this question this morning in the spirit of inclusion. I asked the question to help clarify. We're here to celebrate Yom Kippur together, and so for those who are not Jewish by birth or by conversion, but for whom maybe the term Jewish adjacent feels more accurate, you have thrown in your lot with ours. And I, for one, am so glad that you are here. I'm so glad that Wise Temple can be a spiritual home for you. So for the purpose of this thought exercise, no matter where you are along your Jewish journey, everyone counts in today. Everyone gets to answer the question. So imagine with me that you're filling out an online form. There's a drop-down menu of Jewish identifiers that you have to choose. You can't click next. It's a required question. You can't click next until you've chosen something on the drop-down menu. And you can choose as many words as feel right. At the top of my list, I'm going to put the word Reform. I hope you do as well. And in the drop-down menu, there are also other denominations. There's Conservative and Orthodox, Reconstructionist. To these, we can add Renewal. I even every once in a while hear folks throw around terms like conservadox or reformative, non-denominational, pan-denominational, Jew-boo, Jewish and Buddhist. We have Ashkenazi Jews and Sephardi Jews, Yemeni Jews, Romani. There are Israelis and Ethiopian Jews. And some may describe themselves theologically as atheist or agnostic, while others click on the word religious. I remember the first time that someone described me as religious. It caught me off guard, and then I thought, well, I am a rabbi, so if the shoe fits, I might as well own it. There are those who describe themselves as spiritual, but not religious. It's not infrequent that someone will say to me, you know, Rabbi, I'm a secular Jew. I'm a cultural Jew. I'm very committed to bagels and lox kind of Judaism. And so today, no matter how we identify, we also notice the ways that our identities are layered, are a multitude. We have an intersection in our identity today as well. There are Jews of color. There are LGBTQ+ Jews. And there are political choices that we can make as well in this drop-down menu. There are Democrats and there are Republican Jews. There are Zionist Jews and there are those who identify as diasporist. There are all kinds of Jews among us right now. We can divide out according to one of our greatest debates of all time. The question of what drives us more, Jewish universal values or particular commitments. There are those Jews that are inspired by those universal Jewish values. We are to be a light unto the nations. And there are those for whom their Jewish tribal commitments are felt profoundly and are felt paramount. Defining ourselves along these lines, they have been one of the greatest theological challenges presented to us since October 7th of 2023. Now, there are also sanctuary Jews. I see those sanctuary Jews here every Friday night. And there's the protest Jew, the one who lives their Judaism through the value of Tikkun Olam and quotes Dr. Abraham Joshua Heschel after he marched at Selma, that Judaism is praying with your feet. There is the inner seeker, who always reads a Jewish book. There are the summer camp Jews. Hi there, I'm one of those. We also have vacation Jews who seek out synagogues no matter where they go on their travels. And there are twice-a-year Jews. If that term resonates, please know I am so happy to see you today. And don't worry, we're not taking attendance. I ask you this question so that you might be able to self-identify. In his book, Who Are the Jews and Who Can We Become?, Rabbi Daniel Hartman identifies two other types of Jews. There is the Genesis Jew, he says, and there is the Exodus Jew. Based on the first two books of the Torah, Rabbi Hartman describes two ways of seeing our world through a Jewish lens. His dichotomy is not original to him, yet he packages it in a different sort of way. There are comparisons between the books of Genesis and Exodus throughout our tradition. Creation of the world is what Genesis is all about. Creation of the relationship between God and humanity, the creation of the Jewish family, that is what we celebrate in the book of Genesis. It's for that reason that when we chant Kiddush each and every Shabbat over our wine, we sing Zecher L'Maaseh V'Reishit, help us to remember the works of creation. Exodus, on the other hand, is about primarily redemption and revelation. In Exodus, the covenantal relationship between God and the Israelites takes shape, which is why, equally, at each week at Shabbat Kiddush, we say Zecher L'Tziat Mitzrayim, help us to remember our going out from Egypt. Considering Genesis and Exodus together provides a richer understanding of our tradition, which is why Rabbi Hartman asks, well, are you a Genesis Jew or are you an Exodus Jew? Hartman says that the Genesis Jew is one who embraces the idea of an ever-expanding Jewish family. It begins with Abraham and Sarah and radiates and grows across the generations, branches that reach into the souls of every Jewish person today. The covenant between God and the Jews, according to the Genesis Jew, endures. The Genesis Jew is loyal to people and to God, and the Genesis Jew holds on to the value of pluralism. As Hartman writes, the foundational Genesis principle is that a Jew is a Jew is a Jew is a Jew. It doesn't matter what one believes or how one behaves. No one can claim to be more of a Jew or a better Jew. One cannot leave the tribe, even if you choose to never participate. The Genesis Jew takes family seriously. It's about loyalty and tribal commitment. Our matriarchs and patriarchs, they paved the way for a family tree that extends to all of us today. The Genesis Jew is all about Jewish continuity, taking their place in Shalshelet HaKabbalah, that sacred chain that remains unbroken. The Exodus Jew, though, sees things differently. For the Exodus Jew, commitments are conditional. The observance of mitzvot, what we are asked to do as Jews, that is central to the person who holds on to Exodus. In response to redemption and then to revelation at Sinai, the Israelites declare out, Na'aseh v'nishma, we will do and we will understand. And the Exodus Jew lives their lives Jewishly. The Exodus Jew lights Shabbat candles and gives tzedakah. They show up and they protest. The Exodus Jew is a healer when called upon to heal, comfort when confronted with loss, and gives when asked to give. In that way, the Exodus Jew constantly reaffirms their Jewish identity with each and every Jewish act they perform. Blessings come the way of the Exodus Jew not because they're simply Jewish, but because they behave Jewishly. Now, in reality, we are all a little bit Genesis and a little bit Exodus. They are together two strands of a double helix that make up our Jewish DNA. And the question that I would ask is, how for yourself would you turn the gauge, turn the dial between the two? How much do you identify with the description of being a Genesis Jew versus that of the Exodus Jew? And perhaps why? On Yom Kippur, we are given this time for reflection and the possibility of teshuvah and for recalibration at the head of this new year. I hope that given this, there are a ton of words that swirl around in your minds that you might use to describe yourselves. Now, sometimes when I meet someone, they will say, I'm sorry, Rabbi, I'm not a very good Jew, I don't come to services. But to me, labeling one as a good Jew or not is counter to the clarification exercise that I'm suggesting. It's not about passing judgment, it's about further understanding and curiosity. Whatever the words may be to describe your own Jewish life, there is really only one adjective at the end of the day that I personally really care about. My hope is that each of us would describe ourselves as serious Jews. There are people who take their Jewishness seriously, and there are others who don't. So today, let us commit to being serious Jews. And if you're not ready to take your Jewishness seriously, then I fear that the world in which we are living will remind you of your Jewishness, whether you like it or not. The serious Jew is someone who thinks about what it means to hold on to universal Jewish values. We understand that we are called to moral standards expressed and celebrated throughout the Torah and our tradition. The serious Jew is curious about the world around them and interested in how our tradition speaks into that world and speaks into our lives. The serious Jew is someone who also accepts the burden of loyalty, recognizing that there are particularistic tribal commitments that exist for Jews today. Positively, the serious Jew is someone who contributes to community, who expresses their Genesis-style loyalty in a way that is keeping with their Exodus-based values, who, because of that, cannot even consider walking away, but rather commits to continue to iterate and make Jewish life and Jewish community better and better and better each and every day. I value serving people who take their Jewish lives seriously. I hope that the label of the serious Jew is one that you will consider seriously. And I pray that as a community, we will continue to revel in and celebrate our diversity of identity, our diversity of perspective, because that, I believe, is our strength. And today of all days, I would encourage us not only to identify what sort of Jews we are today, but what sort of person we want to be tomorrow. In this new year, I pray that our sense of Jewishness deepens. Yom Kippur is our day to recalibrate our Jewish selves for meaningful living. And so my prayer for each of us, may we continue to gain greater clarity on who we have been, better understanding of who we are in this moment, and a dedication to crafting a life towards who we desire to be. Tzom Kal, have an easy fast. Gemar Chatima Tova, may we be sealed in this year's book of life.